What's up, Science Fam? It's not just your heart that gets faster when you yourself want to go faster. Whenever we run or sprint, your heart goes doki doki or beats really fast, but it's not just that, we also breathe really fast. We end up gulping the air around us really fast. But what is it that is in air that we need so much? So all of that and more is what we're going to talk about for this set of videos. My name is Sir Ramon, and this is Science with Sir Ramon. Let's get right into it. So how did that workout go for you? You had 10 burpees. It's completely optional, but for those that tried it, were you chill or did you end up gulping for air? So most likely it's going to be the latter, because you do need to breathe faster when you're more active. We need something in the air when we use energy. And that something in the air is oxygen. It's present in the air as oxygen gas, two oxygen atoms together in one molecule. And when we breathe out, we're also releasing another gas, and that gas is carbon dioxide. This time it's CO2. So two oxygen atoms with another carbon atom, we breathe that out. And that is what our respiratory system does. It exchanges gases, it takes in oxygen and then yeets out carbon dioxide. But why do we have to do that? What is it about oxygen that is so important to us? So we'll find out more about that for this lesson. So this is what we're going to be doing for this lesson. We're relating the respiratory organs to their media, look at the factors that affect respiratory rate, trace the flow of air through the body, look at the functions of different respiratory organs, basically understanding the respiratory system. So why do we need to breathe? What's the oxygen for, and where does CO2 come from? This can be best explained using cellular respiration. This is a process that our cells do to make energy for our body. So the energy that our cells make is ATP, or adenosine triphosphate, and we get that by breaking down sugars such as glucose. So glucose is broken down using oxygen gas, and you get ATP, water, and carbon dioxide. So again, what's on the left in this chemical formula are the reactants, the ingredients of this chemical formula, and the products are on the right side. So again, ATP is what our cells want, the energy, and water and carbon dioxide are just the byproducts or the waste products. So we need to remove the CO2. So how can you tell when someone's breathing? It's actually the first thing you have to check if you are going to be responding as a first aid responder. So if you see someone unconscious, you check their breathing first. How do we do that? First, we can check for the rise and fall of the chest. So the respiratory system in humans, it's very much related to the chest area. But we'll see what parts of the respiratory system are there. Another is the air and the vapor from the nose. So when you're checking for breathing, you just put your head flat near the nose so you can hear if they're breathing. You look down towards their chest to see if it's rising and falling, or in the case of if you want to be very polite, you can just use a mirrored surface or a flat surface to see if air and vapor come from the nose, just like in this GIF over here. Now, breathing involves an entire organ system, much of which resides in the chest for humans, but that's only for humans. What about other animals? How do they breathe? So, again, humans, we breathe in through our mouths and stuff like that, but for animals like fish, how do they do? Whoops, I'm supposed to move my face, not the entire presentation. So, there we go. So again, just keep swimming, what they say. So fish need to breathe in different ways. So do other animals. So in your respiratory media, we have air and water. So when we say respiratory media, that's the source of the oxygen gas. So for air, there's lots of oxygen in air compared to water. It's also less dense and less viscous. So it's easy to breathe in air and get oxygen from the air. For water, there's less dissolved oxygen, and there's even less in salt water as compared to fresh water. It's also very dense and very viscous. It's very difficult to extract oxygen from water. So we have easy mode and we have hard mode. Let's see the respiratory adaptations to these types of things. So animals tend to adapt their respiratory structures to the media. So what structures help animals get oxygen from respiratory media? We have many structures, such as what's shown here and also here. So let's go through them one by one. But first, we need to understand what ventilation is. So ventilation is the movement of respiratory media over specialized respiratory surfaces. So when your media washes over a surface that can extract oxygen. That's what we call ventilation. So breathing is basically the act of trying to get your respiratory media to wash over the respiratory surface. That's ventilating. So your respiratory media has to, again, wash over the surface. So if the media is water, what surface is good to use with water? So in order to understand that, we look at the gills of the fish. So the gills of the fish are respiratory organs that extract oxygen and excrete carbon dioxide in water. So you can see in this GIF how the water goes through and out of the gills. So if water is a terrible medium, how do the gills get enough oxygen from it? So it has a special mechanism called countercurrent exchange. That's not just in gills, many other parts of the body use countercurrent exchange, but for now, let's just understand what it is. It's basically the exchange between fluids moving in opposite directions. Why is that better? When fluids are moving in the same direction, if you look at this diagram on the right, so if they're moving in the same direction, the exchange is a lot slower because if you look at the percentages, it tends to exchange so that they have the same concentration between them. So it stops at 50%. So it goes from 10, 80, 60, 50, 50, 50. But in countercurrent flow, so countercurrent meaning opposite directions, the different vessels have different concentrations as they move along. So for example, as we start out here on the left, it's 100% to 90%. And even as it moves along, so when this fluid moves along this vessel, it gets lower concentration. This fluid, on the other hand, it's high concentration on this part and low concentration here. So even as the fluid moves along, it doesn't stop at 50%. Because on the other side, the other vessel, the fluid is still lower in concentration. So it will still move towards the lower concentration. So if you compare, it stops at 50% in the upper diagram, but it stops at 5% or even less in the lower diagram. And that's how countercurrent exchange is better. So again, opposite directions, much more efficient exchange. Next, what about air? If air is the respiratory media, what respiratory surface can get from air? So we have lots of adaptations for that. We'll discuss a few of them. So we have here insects, a lungfish, a bird, and an amphibian. So let's go through a few of them. Insects are very small. So their respiratory system would look like this. So it's a tracheal system. Let's get rid of my face. The tracheal system is the simplest system. It's literally just holes, tubes, and sacs. So the holes are called spiracles. So those let air into the body of the insect. The tracheae are the regular airways. So if you look here, these are the regular airways. And the tinier airways are called tracheoles. Now at the ends of these, there might be air sacs. So this is basically literally just little balloons so that the air can stay within the body instead of immediately exiting. So if you try to remember that trend with the heart rate, the smaller things are, the more they need to do things very, very quickly. So again, the heart rate of small things is very fast. That's the same for breathing. Small things need to respirate very, very quickly. So how do they do that? So in order to respirate very, very quickly, they tend to pump. So most insects have a repetitive motion that they do. In this case, the bee flaps its wings, and as it flaps its wings, it's actually pumping air in and out of its body. So these repetitive, very rapid motions help them to ventilate their respiratory surfaces. So again, they pump air throughout their body. Now this term, hemolymph, is just a complicated term for insect blood. So the rapid movements don't just circulate air, they also circulate insect blood or hemolymph throughout their body. Next, how do bigger things breathe air? So insects are very small, that's why they don't need very complicated structures. But for bigger things, they need specialized stuff. So in this case, it uses primitive lungs. So the lungfish has primitive lungs, meaning they are sacs within sacs. So lungs are defined as small respiratory sacs that are inside bigger cavities. So it maximizes surface area so that there's better gas exchange. We'll see more on that in a bit. So the lungfish in particular can breathe air instead of water. So it's adapted to survive in ponds that dry up during the summer. So when the ponds dry up, your lungfish burrow underground and then they just gulp the air instead of trying to breathe through non-existent dried up water. So we'll continue with the other respiratory systems in the next video. So take a breather, breathe for now, and we'll continue next time. I'll see ya.